Welcome back to the Purple Political Breakdown. How's it going? How's your day been? We are back at it again. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it with another Socratic Breakdown, an open panel we do every Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. EST, to talk about the most important issues of the recent week. Of course, you have the host, me, Riddell, and we also have Elijah and Danny as well. So how y'all doing? How y'all feeling?
I'm doing well. How about you, Riddell?
Hey man, I'm good as always with this chaotic political world. I will say this: I watched this one video by this guy named Johnny Harris. You know who that is?
Yeah, I know him.
So I watched his video talking about the Middle East and really some really good information that I learned from there. But I think sometimes when you watch videos like that, though, you need to be able to parse out like what potentially is a bias framing. Sometimes it's hard to tell for the average person, but sometimes it's wise to kind of consider that this is a perspective versus like that everything he's saying is 100% true. I'm not saying he's a propagandist, but I'm just telling people that's always important to note.
No, Johnny Harris is. I've watched his videos a lot. He has a lot of good information. I would say he's more informed than the average person. Even more, I'd say much more informed than me on a lot of things. On a ton of things, actually. But Johnny Harris does get stuff wrong quite a bit, and he does make stuff from a political framework. So you have to kind of be a little careful when you watch him.
Yeah, I definitely think so, but the information is good, and the videos are good too. Not gonna lie. Yeah.
No, he does a good
job.
I don't know who y'all are talking about, but I bet if Danny gives the seal of approval, then I give the seal of approval. So.
Thank you.
It's an interesting YouTuber. I plan to watch. I'm gonna probably do a stream where I'm watching his video on fascism, and I already watched like a good amount of it. And the parallels to Trump, like I already knew a good amount about fascism, but it's crazy the parallels to like Mussolini and Hitler to what Trump has done. I'm not gonna lie, it's actually kind of insane. But Elijah,
hey, be careful with that rhetoric, man. You might be responsible for the next assassination attempt. I just clipped you, so I'll make sure to throw that up.
Well, yeah, I'm calling him Hitler, man.
Dude, I keep seeing this clip of, I can't remember who it was. It's somebody, like some leftist person debating with people on Fox, and they are saying that Kamala called Trump a fascist, and then they pull up the tweet, and it's saying, and Kamala's just saying that J.D. Vance called him like Hitler or something. And then, yeah, and then they're all like, yeah, see, you just pulled up the receipts, and it's like, he's literally saying that somebody else did it. He's not calling him, you know what I mean? Or that's what she said. It was the most jumbled.
Are you talking about Adam Mockler?
Yeah, yeah, the Adam Mockler thing. I think it's like, it's so, I've never seen people act like something was a dunk so hard, and they're just misinterpreting the exact point of.
Or idiots, bro. God, like
you were gonna say something else, weren't you?
Hey, I promised one person that was in my chat that I will stop saying the R word, bro.
But... I did. Yeah, you're good. You're good. But I'm doing good. Did a lot of content recently.
All right, big W, big W. There's plenty to talk about. Kind of, I think it's always appropriate to kind of bring this up even briefly. We don't have to spend too long, but since Danny's our international expert, the Iran conflict is still ongoing, of course. A lot of people have thought that this was going to be over quickly. It's very clearly not. The gas prices have gone crazy. The price of oil has gone crazy. And right now, there is a couple peace deals that were sent to Iran. The first one, Iran said no, and now China and Pakistan's working on one to see if they can get that situated. And Trump keeps on flip-flopping. He's saying, you know what, I'm good with the Strait of Hormuz. You know, we'll be good. And then he says, you know, I'm going to completely destroy everything they have. So, yeah, we're in a interesting situation. So, Danny, quick thoughts about the Iran stuff.
Well, it's not going. I mean, it's one of those things where, okay, it's going well in the sense that, yeah, we are messing up the Iranian military. Not going well in the sense it's hurting the economy. And we have to keep in mind the Iranian military is not trying to win the war on an on a military basis. They know. I've said this before in the podcast. It's been said so many times by various commentators. The Iranian military knows it cannot defeat the U.S. military in a head-on battle. We just will win every single fight. It's just like how we won every single fight in Vietnam. However, they know they can win the war or have a chance to win the war, at least get a good peace deal, if they can force the U.S. into a position where we find it politically unviable to continue the war, i.e., a bad economy, rising oil prices, to where Americans, as well as foreign governments or foreign citizens, start demanding an immediate end, which there already is an immediate that being demanded by foreign citizens, maybe not foreign governments, but we do see that. Going forward, we are now seeing that about 3,000 soldiers are being transported to the Middle East. Might be a bit more than that. We're seeing U.S. Marines, as well as the 82nd Airborne Division, who got its fame during World War II, being transported to the Middle East. So that makes people think that an invasion of Karg Island is imminent, which, outside of playing Battlefield 3, if you remember that map, is going to be a really tough place to take, because, again, I want to emphasize, we will take the island. It is, however, defended to a certain degree. Even if we wipe out a lot of those defenses, it's going to be then a question of how do we hold the island. And at that point, it might become necessary to start I'm speculating here. It might become necessary to deploy soldiers to the Iranian mainland, because Karg Island is within artillery range. Crap. Do you guys see me or hear me still?
We don't see you, but
We
we
can
can still
hear
hear you.
Okay. Well, I don't know what the heck just happened. That was weird. Anywho, Karg Island is still within artillery range, as well as within FPV drone range of the mainland of Iran. So these guys will probably be like needing to hide out in basements, effectively, is what it could come down to. I don't see that as going completely as planned. And then finally, the last big thing that happened is Trump is now questioning American NATO membership. We even had Marco Rubio saying that they're considering that he's considering pulling us out of NATO, and thinks that could be a good idea, simply because the Spanish won't let us use, I believe, their airspace at all to even send in soldiers to the Middle East, as well as the UK is refusing to get involved in helping open up the Strait of Hormuz. So that is causing a lot of controversy and has people pretty, nervous in a way. But at the same time, I'm hearing a lot from people in Europe that they're happy that the European governments are saying no. I do also know that France, I believe, France did crack down and stated that Israel is not allowed to deliver military equipment from the United States to Israel to help fight this war. So they're just not going to let them into a French airspace, is what it sounds like.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's personally, I think as of right now, the writing's on the wall with how terrible the economy is doing right now, how all the predictions on the conflict is not going all right. This is a deteriorating conflict where the people in Iran just has to kind of hold out and make the economy worse by attacking all the neighbors. I think eventually, because we know Trump kind of works based off like what the stock market and the economy is doing, if some very rich oil company starts saying, yo, chill the fuck out, I can see him pushing, like, eventually kind of retreating. However, I don't know about Israel. I don't know what their goal is here. They're not going to achieve regime change. So that will be a very interesting part of the equation.
I will say,
is your camera still off, Danny, by the way?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to.
Got cooked.
I was Danny fleeing the debate scene.
Indeed. Well, Dane will be back. That's a little quick dialogue on the Iran conflict. We'll see what happens regarding the peace deals. I also, in my personal opinion, I think a lot of the threats against Iran is scare tactics because ultimately they will try to negotiate a compromise, considering how bad the economy is doing overall. With that said, some interesting conversations to kind of put onto the table. One thing is the well, before we kind of get into that part, that eventually we'll get into. So there's currently an ongoing dialogue around birthright citizenship. The Supreme Court is deliberating. Apparently, Trump went to the court while they were deliberating, sat in the front row, and was just listening. And then he left, apparently in like fury because it wasn't going the way he expected. It's very clear he went there to try to pressure the conservative justice to kind of lean in his favor because they want to get rid of birthright citizenship, or at the very least heavily alter it so it's certain people of certain colors can become immigrants in America. So that has become a dialogue for some people in America saying, you know, a birthright and citizenship is not okay. You know what I'm saying? You should be a certain type of American to be truly be a citizen and all that bullshit, to be honest. So Elijah, what are your thoughts as someone closer to the right
Do we
and not
know?
birthright citizenship?
Do we know what the steel man is for the right on this argument? Like, what are they even like saying is the reason for getting rid of birthright citizenship?
Well, a couple of things that they go to immediately is the aspect of just because you're born here, you're not really a citizen, and then there's the worry, the concern that people are taking advantage of that system. One thing that they bring up consistently is like the whole like China operation, where this was an operation, and I always criticize it. They got caught, they got in trouble, but it was bad. Where people in China were having people born here and then sending them back to China, so that was a big concern where it's like, you guys just have to be born here and you guys consider citizens, and it might not be in our best interest and all that stuff. And then a lot of other people complain about, they're just coming to this country, illegal immigrants, and just having kids born here and becoming citizens. That shouldn't be allowed. So it's the idea that there's some kind of inherent privilege that needs to be endowed for people. I understand the national security thing, but I don't think that is a big enough to kind of take away a right that was instilled in the Constitution itself. But those are some of the things that they use. It's kind of similar to the fraudulent election stuff, where they use like a very minute example to prove a larger claim.
Yeah, and I guess when we were talking about immigration like a month ago or whatever, like the general anti even legal immigration idea that we don't want to have like this big cultural shift, I guess you could use like a similar defense for birthright citizenship, but you have to draw the line somewhere. And I don't think there's any way to discover intent unless it's something like maybe even the China situation, but there are certainly people who just came here from China and got pregnant and were not a part of whatever plan this was from China. So I just think that this is like I understand like maybe the fear. I think it's kind of ridiculous, and they will never be able to point at exactly what they're avoiding, like exactly what they want to change. Like conservatives will never say or be able to say like what American values are we trying to instill. It's all probably going to be adjacent to something race related. But I guess like I can kind of see it, but this is not the way to address that. Is like you have to put a threshold somewhere. And so it's going to be birth. Like I just don't see a way that we could actually criminalize this. Even if we got rid of birthright citizenship, like what would that even mean? You know what I mean? Like it would just be so nebulous. We would be able to go nowhere with this. So I don't know. What do you think about this?
And just so people are very clear about it, all people born or naturalized in the United States and subject to jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. All persons born. So there's really no exception to this case. It's part of our Constitution, and it went beyond slavery because they had a whole case about it. Regarding like Chinese, it is like funny enough, there were like Chinese individuals where they very clearly determined it went beyond just slavery. After the 14th Amendment, they made a declaration that you can be born here and then be considered a citizen, because all thing with like rights and like something in particular regarding that. I don't want to go into too much depth with it right now. I forgot the specific details, but we can go over it, of course. I could find the specific case law, but they have already ruled that this goes beyond just the slavery case. That's already been established in the Supreme Court already. And then the whole like conversation in general regarding this, I don't see the value. One, we're kind of deteriorating with the principles that's already been established, and two, the harms that they're kind of deriving from doesn't seem like the actual reason that they're trying to implement this. It seems very clear that they are trying to establish something that is more akin to keeping a certain type of demographic in America. The whole fear, and this kind of goes to the conversation we had before, the fear mongering of people coming to the country and ruining the culture and the values and ruining America and whatever. Like, these have not been proven to be the case. I don't buy these arguments in general. And in actuality, in like a hypothetical world, sure, but in a hypothetical world, communism is the best system in on the planet. So as of right now, this is kind of what America's built on, and we have provided like good results in terms of the amount of people, the diversity, the cultural liberalism that we instilled, that we want to spread, and of course, all the other things regarding regarding how we were able to grow, not only like militarily or economically, and all the other different shops and institutions that have been created because of immigrants at the same time. It's just foolish, in my opinion, to have this mindset.
Well, and it's wild too, because I mean, we could smell this coming for multiple years ahead, right? Like the excuses for why we were cracking down so hard on the border and on legal and illegal immigration was because, like, it was supposed to not be because of race. It was supposed to not be because of a specific demographic. It was just because of maybe like some voting issue or something. But this, to me, it's like you're trying to prevent like a voting issue for 18 years down the line. It's like you're gonna have a person give birth and then 18 years of living in the United States. It's like now you're just like straight up attacking like a culture. You know what I mean? Like it just becomes a totally different thing. Also, the cope to believe that your ideology needs illegals to win elections is really, really funny to me, because it's like, one, give me any statistic about illegals voting in elections. Give me any evidence of voter fraud, like in any single one of these cases. And it's funny that like you like cry laughy emoji about this, but last time you guys lost an election, you guys stormed the White House. So I don't even want to hear about it. You know what I mean? It's just really funny. It's like really ironic.
Bro. I don't take these people serious. They're autistic, so their facts don't really matter to these people. But it's kind of crazy. We kind of reach this place, and it really branches into a larger conversation. And I think this is appropriate for you to answer yourself, because you fall into this statistic. How do you feel about America no longer being like a white country? Because I do think a lot of what's been happening recently, like the anti-affirmative action, anti-DEI, anti-immigration, it's like all of this has just been like fear mongering because of the idea that this is not going to be the white country it used to be. So, what are your thoughts about that?
If I had a problem with it, it wouldn't have anything to do with like the fact that people aren't white. Like, I don't even know what that means. Like when you say like a white person, like I'm not even sure like exactly what you mean by that, because there are a lot of white people that I hate. Like, think about it from like a conservative perspective. You have a bunch of like white liberal women who are according to you, destroying your country, right? Like you have a bunch of like white liberals who are like speaking for all of these non-white individuals, and it's ruining our country. Why on earth would you want to keep those people in our country? Like, if it truly were an ideological game, like you would be assessing people based on how bad of a person they are. Now, if what you're saying is like, how do you, like, if there was a huge culture difference, like right now I'm surrounded by a bunch of Chinese people because everybody in my lab is from China. There's like 5 people, they all speak Chinese without me. Like, we'll be 5 of us in a room and they'll all talk without me, and I just sit and listen, and I can't understand a single word that they're saying. That's a really uncomfortable position for me to be in, but it has nothing to do with them being Chinese. It's just the fact that they are speaking in a language that I don't understand, and they have a culture that's very different from mine. So if you want to make an argument about like a cultural shift has happened, it's definitely not because of immigrants. I don't think it has anything to do with race. I think has something to do with our media landscape and the internet, and that's why there's been such a big culture difference. But if for some reason you are somehow making that kind of argument, I can like kind of understand it, but it has nothing to do with race, and it shouldn't have anything to do with race. It's all about culture if you're going to even say that it's about culture. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know why we're still doing the race identity stuff, even though MAGA kept on saying, "Oh, let's get beyond the woke."
They were
woke
begging
stuff."
for us to stop.
Facts, and then they just keep on complaining about race and identity. Just keep on doing it. I'm like, at this point, you guys care about it more than the woke leftists ever did. The initial premise that I've always admitted gone too far in certain retrospects is that the people were underprivileged. They were because of historical context, so they were provided opportunity to start equaling out the playing field. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the analogy of like your starting line for a race. Certain people have different starting lines, of course, and then certain people have certain connections, and then there's a reasonability factor of like uh determining which one is more qualified based off like stereotypes, based off familiarity that played into how certain people of certain colors or certain races that were just like, I don't, I'm more familiar with people like me that are qualified, so you're not going to get the job. Like, we understand these are objective truths and objective facts. The problem is when it became too far, and when we're just going like white people are evil, white people are racist, right? All white people side. I was like, no, 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 no. That's not what we should be doing. We should be providing people the opportunity still to build a community so we can build up these poor communities that tend to have these types of people. The reason why, because of historical context of oppression. Like, we all factual claims. Ultimately, I think we should be reaching a point where all of this doesn't matter because, to be honest, all of us are going to be brown 200 years from now in the first place. So all of this is ridiculous, especially when you consider the only reason why I'm this color and you're that color is because melanin. Like, it has nothing else to do with anything else. The sun protects me a little bit better than you. That's the only
Yeah, the
difference.
sun destroys me, bro. I'm jealous, dude. On God, dude. I get owned by the sun. My Irish skin sucks, dude. But the other thing too is imagine being like such a snowflake that the color of people's skin bothers you this much. Like, I just can't believe that we are doing so much. Like, we are so scared of a different culture like influencing the culture that we have right now that we're trying to get rid of birthright citizenship, and with no purpose, by the way, like with no reason to believe it. And so I just think that like you're exactly right that the race of these people shouldn't matter. Like, again, if we were having a conversation about culture, like I am somewhat understanding of the anti-immigration argument. Like, I kind of understand what they're saying. I'm definitely more amenable to than maybe you and Danny are, but I just think that you have to be very particular about exactly what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Because skin color does influence the way that people interact with you. But I just don't like there's got to be a way deeper conversation about this than just skin color. And I think that conservatives have somehow become the snowflakes in this regard, constantly talking about it, but it's just not really an issue that they're like 10 years in the past, you know, they're like digging up old news to complain about it now, just like they hated liberals for doing 10 years ago, digging up old tweets. And so it's like, it's the same thing. They're just doing the same thing. We're just taking turns with passing the controller on who gets to be upset about things that don't matter. And right now it's the conservatives' turn, I think.
Yeah, we'll see how that kind of plays out. But yeah, that's the conversation. Maybe the Supreme Court, some of the conservative justices get a pair of cojones and decides to rule against that bullshit birthright citizenship argument, and we can kind of move past that, and we'll see. But another big conversation that has happened regarding Donald Trump and the bullshit that he be doing is regarding elections. So recently, Donald Trump signed an executive order cracking down on mail-in voting, a move that voting rights advocates say would disenfranchise millions of Americans. This is already true. I've already proved it multiple times on the podcast. It requires the DHS to compile a list of verified U.S. citizens in each state who are eligible to vote, almost contain certain to be challenged in court, of course, because I'll explain in a second. And a couple quotes: "We want to have honest voting in our country, because if you don't have honest voting, you can't really have a nation if you want to know the truth." And then, according to the White House fact sheet, they want the list that they're asking for would be sent to each state, and the order directs the attorney general to prioritize the investigation, prosecution of election officials, individuals, and other entities that violate the law by issuing or distributing federal ballots to ineligible voters. It also directs the attorney general to withhold federal funds from non-compliant states, yada, 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 yada. So I'll go into more depth when I do my show this weekend, but the general thought is that Trump is trying to make elections harder. They know that they're about to get destroyed in the midterms. We already, if you don't know, the SAVE Act will disenfranchise a lot of voters, make it much harder. But the biggest thing to note is that this is an executive order, which means none of the states have to listen to this bullshit. He can yell as much as he wants as the president of the United States with this executive order. None of these states are obligated to do any of this. So I don't think it will mean anything on the big end. However, if you're a Republican state and you have a Republican Congress and you have a Republican governor, it's very possible that your state gets screwed over from this, not Democratic states, because no Democratic state is going to listen to this bullshit. So any thoughts about this?
You know, it's hard because, again, this is kind of another one of those situations where I understand what the purpose of it is. Like, we leave a lot of room for tampering, and we've had a lot of scares about tampering in elections. Like, we were worried about Russia colluding with Trump during his election, and then the accusation was thrown against Hillary Clinton as well for other collusion attempts and stuff like that. And then obviously the January 6th. I think the bigger problem with voter safety, or the safety of our elections, is with people's reaction to the idea of unsafety than actually unsafe things. Like, I feel like there hasn't been any substantial proof or evidence to say that massive voter fraud is happening. You can point to maybe like one or two cases, but it's absolutely not widespread. And so I think that actually the fear of voter fraud is doing more damage to the vote than actual voter fraud. But I do understand like what's happening. There's just like, it's a super pragmatic conversation about how exactly to do votes. I will say that the timing is convenient, but nobody is ever going to like the timing of voter reform. Nobody's ever going to like it. It's always going to disenfranchise a large population of people depending on when it's happening. So I don't like that as an excuse. Like, disenfranchisement, like right at the beginning, it's always weaponized and it's always going to hurt a population of people. So I'm not super worried about it, but I don't like that kind of argument. But I do think that there's just not been any substantial evidence that it's something that needs to be solved.
So you're correct, and I guess I am curious to see like what you're referring to in terms of the concerns, right? There's always concerns about everything, but is this concern a practical concern that beds itself in reality? And you're correct about the election fraud stuff. There's no evidence, like less than 1% of illegals vote, and if they do vote, then they'll get kicked out the country. That's a federal crime. So the risk of your illegal voting is you get kicked out the country. That's like, why would you risk your entire life for something you legally can't do? So this is just a fear tactic and just MAGA making shit up per usual. But in regards to the conversation of like voter security, I mean, I've looked into it. All this stuff about caring about voter security, I think this is all just bullshit. This is all dog whistle for MAGA. I already know for a fact that they defunded the organization that helps keep these voting systems secure. They fired the people and they took away their money. And these organizations are designed to stop international interference. They don't give a fuck. So they just did that because they felt like it. And then a lot of these Republican states left the system, a secure system that was bipartisan, that was used to collect voter data, voter roll data, and make it more efficient to kind of keep track of all this stuff. Republicans left it because some bullshit reason. They didn't give a fuck. They just left it. They created a lie about it. Oh, it favors Democrats because it was telling people to register to vote because they weren't registered. And We just know more people who register to vote. Republicans don't want that. We saw the infamous clip of, was it Mike Johnson kind of looking like he's kind of happy that more people are not voting. So everything in regards to Republicans caring about votes, all of it is a lie, all of it is bullshit, and there's too much evidence to prove that in comparison. But you brought up something interesting in terms of like voting reform and disenfranchisement. So I think where I probably would agree is that there are voting reform methods that I've advocated plenty that people won't understand. So it could disenfranchise, and we can get into that potentially. And then there are other things that I would say would incentivize more people to vote, because my goal is more people, incentivizing more people to vote. That's like the bigger problem. We have an issue with people not voting, not people like illegally voting. So what were you referring to in particular?
Yeah, I just think that when you create a process for voting, this is kind of like there's I heard Destiny talking about like the black box theory, and that the problem is that certain systems have become so complex that we're not able to verify the steps in between A and B. And so it's like in our phone, it's when I do something, it's impossible to know all of the exact steps, and I can start to kind of like fill in the blanks as to what is happening in between. Like if I send you a text, there's not really a great way to verify that the text that I sent actually got to you in the right way, because of all of the steps and processes that happen in between that I don't know about. And so the idea is that mail-in voting kind of adds another step of like transportation, of like correct counting, of like multiple hands on voting ballots. So it leaves room for people to interfere with this kind of voting. That is less room than if you had to go and do it yourself. And so the fear is that with more room to intervene, the likelihood or the harder it would be to detect that somebody's intervening, somebody's actually affecting our elections, and it would be easier to hide it. And so that's like the fear that I'm kind of referring to for mail-in votes, that like I don't think it actually adds that much uncertainty to our current process, but I don't know if there's a solution to the uncertainty in our current process anyway. Like that kind of exists no matter what. So the point that I was making is that I understand the concern, but I just don't think, I don't know if this is the right solution. I think that all of that concern exists in the current way that we do voting as well.
Well, that, there's a process or theory applies to basically everything, which why you brought up your phone example. I think a good comparison is like the information the information consumption situation we have right now in society. The best way to consume information is through a primary source, and even beyond that, it's being there. However, the amount of people who are going to be at a location to consume the information, to digest the information, is very little. So we want to inform people the most as possible. So we add more and more steps to kind of broaden the scope, so more people can get entangled in the web of information. Of course, the analysis you have to kind of put out, the potential consequence is that there are rooms for problematic things like misinformation, for example, not really being sure that the framing after it kind of goes layer by layer is correct, of course. But then the result is more people getting informed. Now, I think that is a institution that is not really heavily regulated, however, where in comparison to something like voting, it is very deliberate in its regulation, and it is something that is instilled as not only a right but a mandated process that the government needs to pay attention to, arguably the most out of anything. So if we did that for information, I think that would be very helpful. But of course, that plays into potential confusions on terms of like control and informational control. But voting, we all know that the government has to do it, so there's really nothing else you can kind of say about this, and to ensure that it's done right in our system.
Do you trust like Trump's government to regulate voting in a good way? I feel like with the 7 fake slates of electorates that he tried to pawn off in all of the January 6th riots would lead me to distrust. Like I would like to give as little power for Trump's current government to do things regarding the vote as possible. And so mail-in voting, like obviously they're not shooting themselves in the foot. They want to do this because it gets them more votes, because Democrats are the ones who primarily use mail-in voting. But like, let's just say, just on the principle of it, it feels like I don't necessarily trust the Trump government to regulate my voting well. So I would want to kind of restrict the ability for them to cheat.
Well, the when I refer to government, I know people tend to like think of federal government. I'm talking about all government, because that's how their process works. It goes through a bunch of steps, including local and state governments, and then of course the of Congress as well, to ensure that there is a level of checks on like what is going on, and certain independent agencies too. So the problem here is that what Trump is trying to do is he's trying to make it where the federal government has all this influence on voter roll data, on the elections, to make sure that things are going the way that they want to go. That's the problem. That's what they want to do. Right now, that's not how it is. So in the current situation, I think you can even argue allowing a system that is incentivizes more people to vote. Where I personally, at the very least, in terms of local elections, I advocate that we just start implementing more like voting methods that's not simply going to a ballot box. Eventually, we do need to transition to online. Again, it's just incentivizes more people to vote. The more people can vote, the better. And obviously, have a lot of security and independent agencies to ensure that it is like being safe and not defund them like the Trump administration does. Of course, you're going to need all of that stuff. But as of right now, our elections don't have that issue. Our elections will have that issue if Trump gets the way he wants. So to answer your question, no, I don't trust Trump at all.
Yeah, and the online voting thing scares me too, because it's like I understand why we should do it. Like I kind of have the same intuition, but talk about the lack of ability to understand if things are being tampered with or not. Like we already have this problem with the numbers about the amount of illegal immigrants that are coming across the country. Like that number is a very difficult thing to know. And then that's why Trump is increasing the amount of people who have crossed the border illegally as his presidency goes on, or the people that Biden let in during his presidency. And so I think that that's already like an unverifiable number. And if you put the elections online, it kind of permeates that problem. Like that problem is still there with an online format. And I think that maybe the only solace we have with the way that we currently do it is that you have to have a lot of manual labor of people literally picking up the boxes, putting it down. And so you have so many people involved that a lie would be harder to conceal. But with online, I'm just not sure. Do you have ways of, like, online voting makes me super uncomfortable,
Well,
but I don't know if there's a better
lot of
solution.
there's a lot of information that you have security over. Well, you should, unless you're an idiot and put all your information online, like your social security number. But there's a lot of information that can be very clearly identified to determine you are who you are and you are an American citizen. And I know people have like concerns over everything, but there's a reason why not all of us have all our information stolen, because we keep it to ourselves. There are like very secure websites throughout the government, throughout all your banks. Like this information is secure for the most part. Now, of course, there are people who want to hack it. So that's why we need agencies to ensure that they are constantly enforcing a level of protection over this information. So will there be risk? Yes. But the analysis is not whether or not risk is going to be there and whether or not risk is going to increase. The analysis is, does the risk outweigh the amount of people being involved into the system? Because right now we have a circumstance where people are getting dissuaded from the system for a variety of reasons. So there's like a 3-step thing for me. At the very least, like I said, if we do it for local elections, that'll be great. There's a 3-step thing that I think is very important to get people more involved. One, you need to incentivize them to be more involved and feel like their voices are being heard. 2, you need to educate them much better in terms of like understanding the process. And then, oh shit, what was the? Oh, you need to make the process in itself easier. So it does require a lot of like steps, but what we need is people to be more involved into the system, because institutions only exist with trust. Right now, one of the reasons why idiots like some people in the chat think that the election was stolen is because they lost trust in the system, and then they believe a fat billionaire is giving them all the answers. that's a failure in terms of our ability to connect the people to the system itself, because there's a level of complacency because everything was going well. But unfortunately, once something goes bad, COVID, that's going to deteriorate a lot of people's beliefs. So we need to kind of return back to a moment. Not even there's not. I don't even think return is the best and best thing to say there. We need to arrive at a moment where people are one within the system, because that's how it's supposed to be working. Relying on like other people to make decisions for you can only take you so far, because we have people who will take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. When I meant risk, I meant more risk of trusting the result. Like, can we trust that these numbers are accurate, that this person actually won? Because it would be very difficult to verify as a citizen. It already is. Like, I'm not saying that this problem doesn't exist now, but I think that it becomes increasingly more unverifiable to assess how true the result is at the end. Like, did he really get this many votes? Which again is a problem that already exists now. But I just think that when we transition to online, I think that you're right. The benefit of involving more voters is good. I just think that the question should maybe be more about the verification of the results. Like, can we still trust the results if they're online versus when they're in paper? But I do agree, getting more voters in is super important.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we'll see eventually how that kind of gets incorporated. But like I keep on saying, we at the very least need to do this in the local level, because nobody pays attention to the local politics at all.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, local politics affects you more than federal politics. People don't understand that. They don't vote at all. Like, this is a way bigger problem locally. So these type of strategies will just incentivize people to pay attention a little bit more. Another big thing that happened in terms of like Supreme Court decision that I think is important to at the very least show is the Supreme Court backs the challenge to Colorado's ban on LGBT conversion therapy. So, the U.S. Supreme Court on Tuesday backed the challenge to a Colorado law that banned psychotherapists from using conversion therapy intended to change an LGBT's minor's sexual orientation or gender identity, siding with a Christian licensed counselor who challenged the law on free speech grounds. So, the basic premise, from my understanding, without reading everything, is that there is a level of like sovereignty to allow kids to go through conversion therapy again.
Wait. So there's a lot of double negatives in that article. Wait, so the Supreme Court backs Colorado's decision to
That's
deny.
the challenge to the law that banned conversion therapy.
Okay, wait.
So-
What? Sorry, can you tell me what we're supporting? Sorry.
So the Supreme Court said, yes, you can do conversion therapy.
I see. Okay. Interesting. Oh man. This is probably a good thing. I would just need to see some stats about conversion therapy and the bad that comes from it. Obviously, we hear the horror stories, but there are also stories of success. So this is what to me would be purely pragmatic about whether or not it should be banned. But I do think that the onus is on the state to show evidence that conversion therapy is worse or significantly worse than it is better. I would definitely need something like that. Unfortunately, the onus is on the state to prove that, I think.
To get a little bit more details, the challenge law prohibits licensed mental health care providers from seeking to change a minor's sexual orientation or gender identity according to a predetermined outcome, which each violation punishable by a fine of up to $5,000. This includes attempt to reduce or eliminate same-sex attraction or change behaviors or gender expressions. So the law used to be this, and then they challenged this. They also said Colorado's law does permit treatment that provide assistance to a person undergoing gender transition, as well as therapy centered on acceptance, supporting understanding for identity exploration and development. So that's what they do support. So I'm sure we all seen the horror stories of like conversion therapy, especially Christian conversion therapy, where they try to convince a gay kid that he's not gay and that he is defying God's will.
Yeah, it depends on what they mean by conversion therapy, because there's conversion therapies that are like literally whipping people into shape when they have gay thoughts or something. You know what I mean? Like you have like crazy conversion therapies, but then you also have like a kind of self-help approach that's like, look, you should be comfortable with who you are, like unrelated to gender, you know, it focusing on who you are and what that means, and that changing it isn't going to solve the problems that exist internally within you, which is true whether you want to transition or not. You should be comfortable with who you are. And so the question obviously is, who are you, right? But I think that there are different types of conversion therapy. So in general, I'm pretty supportive of this, I think.
So they sided with a Christian licensed counselor. So that does beg a very important question, though. Is the job of a mental counselor to convert you or to help you with your problems?
Yeah, that's the question, right? The current LGBTQ conversation is saying both people want the person who's suffering from gender dysphoria to be cured. The question is, which way does this? Should we be to do both? So the left is, or you know, pro LGBTQ is trying to say that we should be supportive of who they want to be. We should use preferred pronouns. We should be acting as if the person is the gender that they want to be, and this will decrease suicidality. This will make people happier. The right is saying that, like, no matter how much you do with this, it won't go against the underlying truth, and a better path would be just to make them comfortable with who they are. So address the uncomfortability instead of trying to solve the uncomfortability. Both sides have pretty good evidence for them being correct, I think, but it's a very new issue. So I think that we just need to do more research on which one actually works.
That's an interesting perspective. I'm surprised. I don't think there's any good argument that a mental counselor intended purpose is to make you think one way is good. I don't think that is an appropriate responsibility for someone who's there to listen, help you understand your own issues, but trying to convince you to think a certain way. I think that's wouldn't that just be manipulation?
No, I mean, well, I mean, the very obvious example, right, is if you were thinking that you need to kill yourself, there is a right answer to that. Or if you were thinking that you need to hurt others, there's a right answer to that. If you were thinking that your problems are permanent, there's a right answer to that. So there is a lot of right answers. The problem is that something like mental health has been politicized to where it feels uncomfortable to give a right answer, but there is a right answer. There's a pragmatic answer about like what you should do. We probably don't know it yet, but it is the therapist's job to help you figure out what the right answer is. But they shouldn't seriously consider bad options unless it's to maybe for like a teaching moment or maybe for some sort of learning process. But it is the counselor's job to point you to the right answer, because oftentimes there is a right answer.
Right. So they're for something like suicide, they don't come out and go like, you can't kill yourself. They get into your thought process to understand why you want to do it, and the grander ramifications on like understanding your feelings on this current situation, and think about not only the consequences of why you want to do it, but also kind of figuring out if this is like worth it based off the circumstances that you've been through. Like it's a lot of like an understanding process. From my understanding for conversion, it's very intentional. It's all about making sure you think one way. So when it's something that intentional, that is problematic because even I don't know this for certain, but even if someone who's like trying to convince someone not to kill himself, they can't tell them not to do it. If they do it, then they do it. It's not the fault of the mental counselor still. Then they wouldn't be liable for that. They did their best. A conversion therapist, their job is to convert you. That's what they're there for. If they don't do it, they failed at their occupation.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think the framing. Okay, first off, I'm getting my PhD in psychology. I'm not a clinical psychologist, but I do understand like quite a bit about how these processes work.
Okay.
The underlying, the underlying framework of helping somebody get through something is they know what the end goal is. So when a doctor is or like a therapist is trying to get you through something, and they're like actually taking seriously the idea that somebody wants to kill themselves. They are walking them through it purposefully, even though the from the perspective of the person getting therapy, it seems like they're maybe like actually genuinely considering it. Like, hey, this doctor's kind of supportive of me killing himself because he's not yelling at me saying, don't do it. He's saying, why do you want to do that? Why would you do that? What do you think is going to happen? The same thing does happen, as far as I know, from conversion therapy. They say, like, why do you want to change your sexuality? What makes you uncomfortable about the way that you are right now? Why do you want to do that? They do take it seriously, and then they posit answers in the same way that a therapist wouldn't ask, why do you want to kill yourself? And they're like, I don't know, my life's going really terribly. And they're just like, yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, there would be more than just that. They would say, like, hey, have you thought about this perspective? Like, I'm sure your dad loves you. Remember when he did that? You know what I mean? They give solutions that are pointed towards whatever the research backs. So when we have something like depression or suicidality or anxiety in the DSM, the book that describes all of these symptoms, there are paths that you go down of like, this research shows that you should probably approach solving this issue with this kind of thing. A lot of the times it's medication, but there are therapeutic ways that are recommended by doctors to fix these solutions. Again, I actually don't know much about conversion therapy, so it could absolutely be true that conversion therapists are not licensed to do therapy, and the way that they invoke conversion is really bad. But there absolutely are intentional purposes with the way that therapists interact with their patients, I think.
All right, before I respond, I'm gonna shout out this guy for asking the actual like something substantive to the conversation. What is the job of a mental counselor to convince you or your parents that you're born in the wrong body and that we need to transition you into the opposite sex, which isn't even real? You're saying sex is not real or the concept is not real? I'm not sure. Kind of like they tell parents that their children's gonna unalive themselves if they don't start them on puberty blockers. I mean, I think that I've already made my stance clear. I don't think we should be giving kids like drugs and I think 98% of like people think that we shouldn't do like surgeries. So, I mean, these are just not real issues for the most part. Most gender affirming care, from my understanding, is like changing your pronouns or whatever, or just calling them different pronouns, or just like be considerate of like what they're going through. That's technically still gender affirming care. When we start getting into drugs, I'm not on board with that personally. Anyhow, but the conversation. So I don't know. I guess my biggest concern for this, and we'll see how this kind of manifests itself, is not necessarily like the therapy part. I am concerned about the conversion part. My intuition says that's a very, very. I'm unsure about that specific what their intent is, and then I'm double concerned when you have the Christian part. So at that point, is it based off science or is it based off God? And religion?
That's really bad. Yeah, if it's like Christian conversion and the defense for it is Christianity, like there definitely is evidence about certain philosophies being the way that you should probably describe things. And then if you think about Christianity as a philosophy, but that's not exactly how they do it. And that there's like, what I'm saying is that like it should be research backed. And so if the research backs maybe invoking some sort of like religious fear tactic, and then this has like a success rate of whatever predictor we want to increase, then like, whatever, right? But it just depends on what the research backs. But Christian part, I think that's scary too. I see what you're saying.
So yeah, we'll see how that manifests. And I guess the final thing to bring up, because this motherfucking narcissist is doing this, Donald Trump somehow has convinced his cuckold of a Congress and the executive branch to add his signature to money. So he wants to add his signature to U.S. paper currency. Now,
let's go.
Fortunately for me, I don't use bills anymore. I do all my transactions virtually. So I don't have to worry about holding a bill with his dumbass signature on it. But
after years and years of begging, we finally stopped making the penny just to start putting Trump's signature on dollar bills. It's like, the big problem was that we were printing meaningless currency. And then it's like, what we should do? We should reprint all of our bills with Donald Trump's signature.
Right. That's exactly
that's a great way to save money.
That's how we fix the economy. Actually,
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there is that's how we fix putting his signature on bills. That's how we fix.
Guys, stop worrying about the Iran war. There are more serious things that we should be talking about. Have you ever looked at your dollar bill and noticed that there is a disturbing lack of Donald Trump's signature on it? Today, we finally solved that issue. You guys, the fans have been begging for it. We finally solved that
Honestly,
issue.
this is going to win him the midterms, and he's going to run a third presidency. He's going to win
Yes.
because of this as well.
Yep, exactly. What was the thing?
Oh.
I'd heard somebody say that if a Democrat wins the presidential election and the first thing that they do isn't undoing every single thing that Donald Trump changed the name of or put his name on, he will never vote Democrat again. And I kind of agree with it. Like if wasn't the Lincoln Memorial renamed or like the Kennedy Center was renamed?
Yeah, the Kennedy Center's name. Okay, so here, I'm glad you brought that up. That was going to be my question. Like, how much do you believe in this concept? And I'm not kind of there. I'm all the way there. I swear to God, if whatever Democrat doesn't go in there, remove his fucking signature, remove his name off that stupid fucking website, remove his name from that fucking they put a name on like one of like a federal building, remove that shit, remove all the stupid paintings, put back the other portraits of the other presidents that he just took down, remove his name off of the Kennedy Center, like remove all of it. He is trying so hard to leave his lasting legacy. He is the worst president of all time, if you're not counting the people who died like immediately when they got there. So he is
maybe even worst
president of all time. No, honestly, he's worse. They had a net neutral impact. His is negative. So
yeah, you're so base for that. I just think also like the fear that Donald Trump isn't going to leave an impact. Like, are we serious? Like, are we serious right now? You don't think that we are going to be complaining about Donald Trump for the next 100 years? Like, you are sorely mistaken from both the left and the right. Like, this is so extreme. Saying that we're gonna forget about this dude, like let's be real. So I agree with you. I'm never voting Democrat again if we don't get rid of. Like if we don't name it the Gulf of Mexico again, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not.
Like I don't know. We just doing shit.
Yeah.
I think they definitely need to do that to establish a sense of normalcy back into the institution that is the United States of America. But yeah, he's obviously going to leave an impact. Like all our relationships with our allies are fucked. Honestly, the only thing that I'm curious to see, because we're gonna have to recover from all the bullshit that he's been doing, I am genuinely curious to see how we're going to recover from the oil dependency economy that we have right now. Very clearly, it's not as concrete as we thought, and I do think, honestly, even though like MAGA hates green energy because I have no idea why they hate clean energy. There should be a real conversation of moving towards clean energy if all of our economy can get fucked over purely because of what some Middle Eastern countries are doing. So I think
I think we shouldn't have an oil dependency because we just stole all the oil, or we just got all the oil from Venezuela and Iran. Have you not been paying attention to the news? We just solved that problem. So don't worry about the future. We solved the problems just by committing war. Also, calling me a ginger is so crazy. Like that's got to be a slur. I'm calling that a slur. That's it. That's racist, dude. You're anti-Irish or something, dude. I'm pulling the flag on that. That's crazy.
He said Trump 2028.
Like, let's go. Hey, you'll be like 100 by then. Let's do it.
Apparently, Rand Paul is running for president for the Republicans.
Dude, I just had a conversation with two libertarian organization here on campus, and you know what? I'll just let you watch it. I don't want to speak too badly about them. They're two undergrads, so like whatever. But it was like talking to Beavis and Butthead, dude. It's like the funniest conversation, and the last. It was like pulling teeth to try to get them to say anything bad about Trump. Despite being libertarian, they shouldn't have any like strong polls towards him. But it was, dude, I had to like put my leg on the table to get extra leverage to yank that tooth out to get them to even like say something remotely bad about him. So they're Ron Paul lovers. So I'm sure that they're really excited about that. The libertarians will love this.
Honestly, there's only one libertarian that I respect. His name is Alex Naraste. He's a pretty famous libertarian. He had a debate with Dave Smith, and even though I'm not libertarian by any means, I believe the government should exist, and I think it should have power. That conversation he had with Dave Smith made me respect his viewpoint as a libertarian. All the other libertarians are fake libertarians. They go like, I want the government to leave me alone unless the government is doing this one thing that are screwing over people I don't like. That's when it's okay. But like other situations, like don't tax me. But are you going to get rid of that brown immigrant? Do it. But you're not allowed to tax me though. It's like all freaking inconsistent.
Yeah. Also, the not so erudite hate will not be, the slander will not be taken here. So
he was on a different stream where I was reacting to a video where she was debating with Tim Pool and she cooked the ever living shit out of Tim Pool. And this guy popped in and he hates erudite. He just hates her. I don't.
You got me. I just go ahead and.
Oh man, yeah. Like we agree that Hassan sucks and Tim Pool sucks, but his hate for erudite, I don't understand.
I've never heard her say anything that I disagree with, and she's even like annoying enough to talk to like Andrew Wilson. You know what I mean? Like that is a skill. So, okay, is that me?
Apparently, man.
Crazy. And it's Jinja. Thank you.
No, I'm with you. I haven't like her kind of friendliness with Wilson is kind of cringe, but yeah, I don't.
Probably one of my least favorite people on the planet is Andrew Wilson.
Andrew Wilson is one of the most bad faith debaters, like period. It's not that, and this is why I hate debate. He's good at debate in the worst ways possible.
Yeah,
he's like the worst type of, because he doesn't care about what you're actually talking about. He's just gonna focus on the most minute ways to. It's so disgusting.
I've never heard two people talking to each other and communicate so little because neither of them are actually communicating than any conversation with Andrew Wilson.
Like, what do you mean by they don't communicate with Andrew Wilson? Honestly, that doesn't matter. What are your morals? Do you understand what your morals are?
Yeah, exactly, dude. Like, and that's the worst part is like my worst fear is that explaining to a debate bro that they're a debate bro is like an impossible task because they're just going to debate you about that point. And so it's just like, it's like my biggest nightmare is having a conversation with Andrew Wilson, trying to accuse him of these things because there's just like no way to actually communicate that with him. So yeah, I'm #1 hater for sure.
Honestly, I don't need a position. I just have to critique your position, and you have to confirm that my critique is the invalid. But I don't need an opinion. Like,
exactly.
I hate that, bro. It's so disgusting. And he said she cucks her own husbands. Bro, his hate for erudite is that jealousy? Did she curve you? Did you hop in that DMs and she said, "Nah, I'm good, fam"?
Yeah, true. She couldn't cuck enough to get Will Braham on it. You two look like Cobra Kai fighters. I think that's a good thing, right?
Shout out Cobra Kai. I don't watch it, but shout out.
God.
Nah, never watched it. Anything else you want to bring to the table before we wrap up?
No, I think we got a lot of good stuff with the voter stuff. Like I said, I think that, and this is a problem that I bring up a lot, is that like the retaliatory nature of things. We were talking about punishing people in the past. Like the excuse that always comes up is that it's unfair to do this now because it disenfranchises this population. But then next time when we get an opportunity to do that, it's the same excuse. So.
I'm not gonna lie, Will.
Dude, random word generator. This is sick, dude. Trying to predict the things that Will's gonna say next conversation. So
it's kind of hilarious. I'm there with you. I think it is a fine line, and one thing I will kind of leave a note on is that I do think a lot of people, when they propose, there's two very important talking points of the people who are very like know that Trump sucks. how do we hold them accountable, what that looks like, and then do we work with the far left in lieu of fixing the country? And these are very interesting conversations because Hassan, for some reason, is getting more popular and is on progressive victory. And my thing is this: if you have issues with either, if you propose retaliatory methods, or if you think that we shouldn't work with them despite them like providing a specific result, determine what the consequence is, determine what the result is, the purpose of X thing on whatever kind of like very specific substantive point you're trying to make, and then provide an alternative. One of my biggest issues when people who have these type of talking points is that they say things and they don't provide an alternative. Okay, when someone goes like, okay, if you don't want me to work with these guys because they support us on, then what do I do? And they said, well, I don't know, just hate us on. I'm like, that's not good enough. And then if they go like, okay, I want to hold Trump accountable, and it's like, okay, how do you do it? And you don't have an answer, that's not good enough. So people need to start thinking on like what the next step is. And this kind of bleeds into another point that I want to bring up real quick.
Mm-hmm. I'm on that same boat too. Yeah, I don't know the answer.
I think, and I hate to do this because I support the No Kings protests, but they deserve this criticism.
Yeah.
What is the point of the No Kings protest?
Yeah, and yeah, the second you said No King, I knew what you were talking about. Yeah, I agree. I don't. It's kind of the same thing. Minneapolis did a good job too, but they're just.
But Minneapolis
it's to make them feel. It's to make them feel good. That's the purpose. I'm not saying it's not valid. It's just there's no reason to be doing it.
I don't want to go that far. I think they are trying to spread awareness that Trump sucks and solidarity and come together. Fine. I have an issue with people not realizing the purpose of a protest is to try to achieve a result. When people, that Chrissy Noam's husband thing with the cross-dressing, I don't know if you saw that. That was crazy. Yeah, her husband was cross-dressing and trying to tell women to make fun of him on porn sites. Like, okay. It's
right.
It's crazy. So, shout out you, Kimberly. But my thing is, the No Kings protest should provide very clear direction on how we're going to establish a society with no kings. Like, clearly, we don't want to do anything like revolutionary and terroristic. That's not what a protest is for. That's what a revolution is for. We're not there. A protest is to kind of propose certain things that can galvanize people to do specific actions. And in the situation for the No Kings, you should have very clear proposals on this is what we should do. Whether it can be as simple as we all need to vote and provide direction from particular areas and the type of people you should vote for. But I think that is a big problem with the No Kings protest, that they are not making it very clear on like what we are there. Like, I know what we're there for. What are we protesting to do? And that's what they need to figure out.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think that I kind of struggle with that a lot too, of just not having like a solution. Like, it's pretty easy to come up with things that are bad and theories of why things need to be fixed. But sometimes I struggle, like with this problem about whether or not to retaliate, or with the problem about voting things and like making voting reform. It's like, I know that these are the problems and I know that these are the concerns, but it's like, I don't know what to do about it. So I'm kind of just positing things just to make sure that people at least know what the guardrails are, but I have no fucking clue. So same with the No Kings protest. It's like, I'm okay with, I think it's a good idea, but I think it could be so much better. But I don't know if there's uniformity in the party enough to like actually make something happen with it.
Well, when in doubt, if you ever need a perspective or a solution, then you listen to the Purple Political Breakdown.
On God.
That's what we do here, provide different results. There are some very interesting voting reform methods that you could look up too, Elijah. Like, there's an organization called Equal Vote Coalition. They provide different alternative voting methods like approval voting, star voting, that are better than things like ranked choice voting. So that's very interesting. There are things that are out there. They just need to be a little bit more notable. And we could start kind of putting pen to paper for sure. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, that is all we got for today for the Socratic breakdown for this open panel. No one wanted to pull up. It's all good. That's a little scary. That's fine. That's okay. You can go crazy in the chat, though. We do appreciate everybody pulls up. Someone said restrict voting. I don't know what he's
Based.
regarding that. All you lefties want the illegals to vote. Oh, for sure. You're him. Anyway, with that said, y'all have a good one. Take care. Peace.